Thanks for joining us. This is our June 2021 edition of our CIO EdTech Leaders webcast. I'm David Couch with the Kentucky Department of Education. Thanks for joining us today. I sent you all three things. One is the agenda this morning. I also sent a listing of the Go Soapbox questions, so I think we have Go Soapbox up. If not, just go ahead and open that up. This is our way to get feedback to some questions that we've identified ahead of time, but also you can ask or make comments on anything. We just ask that you associate your name with it, because even stuff critical can be put in a constructive kind of format. And then people can vote on it, bubbles to the top, and we have people that are monitoring that I'm going to ask to bring to my attention. And then a summary. The summary notes are the key points from last month's webcast that you can kind of take a look at to remind you if you were attending or if you hadn't, to cover that, because we're not going to cover all those again, are not going to do that. So, I once again ask you to go to Go Soapbox, and the links there and the logons there and how to join. I do have two pieces of good news I'd like to share with you before we go down the agenda. The first one is we have a birthday today of one of our staff members that you all are probably familiar with. Today is the birthday of Jeff Sabolski. So in honor of Jeff, I have my musical instrument here. I don't know if you see it here. I've come up with a musical instrument and a song for Jeff. So you can join in with me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jeff.
Happy birthday to you. Happy 55th birthday, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
55.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
How'd you like the song
today?
I think we're still on YouTube. I don't think we got it bounced off. So
Thank you. Good times.
Anyone
this
else?
Is just what I was hoping for, was a CIO webcast for my birthday. So thank you.
Does anyone else have a birthday today? Join them. Raise your hand. All right, Jeff. Thanks for all the stuff you do. I hope you have a good, wonderful birthday. Also have something I'd like to share. And I also didn't get prior permission for this. During the Kentucky Board of Education meeting, we had a special recognition. Every organization has these special behind-the-scenes folks that do wonderful things. Some of you have met Janice Harris. Janice was recognized by our Kentucky Board of Education as the first recipient of the Teresa Perry Compassion Award, the inaugural awardee winner of that. You can see my comments there if you read them. That this is from my LinkedIn account with Janice right after she received that award. Teresa Perry was one of the hardest workers in KD agency. She worked for KD for 33 years. I knew her for 30. She passed away suddenly this month a year ago, and she passed away while working. She was working hard through the COVID situation, and that's where they found her. She was helping us prepare for the next school year. So this is our Compassion Award winner. You can see the good deeds that Janice has done: encourage, quality, competence, helping others, and compassion. And it is true. She makes me and nearly everyone she interacts with not only want to be a better person, but be the better person as we interact with others. And her good deeds go way beyond our normal work day. This is a close-up view of that, the Compassion Award. This is Teresa, and the establishment of that award by KD Agency will be given from this point forward every June in honor of Teresa. And Janice was our inaugural recipient of it. And this is us right after. This is the left-hand side of Janice is Teresa Perry's family. Of course, Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Glass, is in there with her. So congratulations to Janice. Very proud of. And Janice is our office manager for the Office of Education Technology. She's been long history of helping children within Kentucky over 3 decades, and very, very deserving person. Very proud of Janice's good work and good deeds. And once again, I didn't tell Janice I was going to do this, did I, Janice? You're muted, Janice. Hey, Janice, you're muted. Oh, she just realized she's a bit. Hey, Janice, you were muted.
I'm sorry. I was saying thank you. I'm still getting calls and comments, and I'm just still trying to cry. Okay. Every time I get this, I get emotional, but I really, really appreciate you all showing the love that you've shown to me, and having the honor of being remembered like this for Teresa. That's very special to me. So thank you very much.
And Janice, the day she got it, didn't know she was getting it. So so that was fun. It goes along with our history of giving fun kind of recognitions for just a super person. So I appreciate both those people that you interact with a lot, and Jeff. Most everyone knows Jeff Sabolski, but for those that haven't had the pleasure to get to know Janice Harris, it's just outstanding person. Proud for her to be part of our organization, the way she represents what she does, and the inaugural winner of that Compassion Award that will be given to KD staff member going forward. So thanks for letting me do a little happy birthday, and then recognize Janice in front of this audience as well. So let's talk about some other great news. This fits along with it, with the topic that I have on agenda. Topic number 1 is the funding situation when it comes to education technology. So we spent some time the previous months. I'm not going to cover that on the $3.2 billion that's available to parents. This is not something that the school district's really involved with, other than making parents aware of it. So if you divide, $3.2 billion by the 50 states, you get approximately $70 million. That's on average what states will get. So it's about $70 million, plus or minus a little bit, that Kentucky has eligible for parents. Process to apply is pretty easy. It's $50 a month. Also pays for a small cost for a device if there's not one there, and that lasts for as long as that money is around. So that's a great opportunity. Once again, we spent time on that. The thing that has changed since last month, I saw more announced in things in different types of forums. I saw it announced. So just to make your parents aware, I guess your role is really making sure your parents are aware of this tremendous financial aid to especially low-income parents, to help them pay for internet service and the device itself. There's also a funding source that was made available that the state government has. It's about $600 million, and this is to complete the last mile in communities. This is something probably your local telcos will apply for. It's a competitive process. I think the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority is leading that. So it's not something you as a school district apply for. It's not something a parents apply for. It's mainly, and it's been really what is the biggest challenge, is finishing the last mile. And just to give you some history on it, is a middle mile was put in every county back in the 1990s. We know that with 100% certainty because our school district's connected. And you have to have a middle mile and then a last mile to connect to that middle mile in order to put the high-speed network that we put in place for every school district back in the 1990s. A second middle mile has been put in over the past, that started in 2015, now in 2021. Still not 100% complete, but over the past 6 years, a second middle mile has been put in place. A lot of it's going along the same poles as the original middle mile. And that's called Kentucky Wired. So there's at least two middle miles available in every county connections, and some counties have more than that, but there's at least two. the effort always should have been, and still is, on the last mile. That's the most expensive one to put in place. And so the reason I mention it in this context is funding is available for telco companies in certain parts of a county, a sliver of a county that's not been reached is, the telco. The reason of the resistance is the amount of money that it takes to put it in, and they're concerned of will they get the payback from those community members, and will they join it and help them pay back their sunk costs. It really does help. If you do have a funding source, it helps you pay for that last mile. It incentivizes those companies to put an expensive place, something in place. So do we have at least some more on? I don't think, no, at least I just want you aware. Is there anything, and you listened in on that committee meeting, is there anything else that needs to be said that I didn't hit upon?
No, David, you covered everything. I think that, it's going to continue to move forward, and it's still part of, the two projects are kind of going together, the wastewater and the broadband deployment. So we'll just keep listening. And the RFIs, which is the request for information, was actually supposed to go out at any time. We should be able to see that.
Yeah. So Lisa Moore is our plays tons of roles with in personal office education technology, and she is the only person that has more longevity than me with the KETS program, just as a historical point of view. So Lisa's been around. Appreciate all the roles you play, Lisa, and she keeps on close tabs on what's going on the legislature side and keeps me very well aware of it. So I've talked about 3.2 billion that's available for parents for last mile access. 600 million that's going to be available to telcos to do last mile to homes and to businesses. To circle back, there was also an initiative that you're aware of is we call it the Lmi Project. It was $8 million that was available to districts to do last mile beyond the school campus, primarily through wireless. I mean, you could do wired, but through all the wireless ways. So there was money there available to do satellite, hotspots, and a right of way to do fixed wireless. All those were eligible to be spent on that. Just as a reminder, you have until the 30th of June. So for the funds that have not been spent by districts, and Mike Lettingham, who's off on a well-deserved vacation this week, told me before he took off is we have about $800,000 of that has not been spent. And I'm not a fan of letting money lapse. So we have the cutoff date of 30 June. Really, we asked that money be expended back in March. So you got a few more months, but this is the real cutoff date is 30 June. And so we're going to make sure that money doesn't lapse. And there's also tons of other funding sources that can purchase with districts, particularly with CARES 3, even CARES 2, since that money, then the money that we're talking about is really part of the CARES 1 initiative. So lots of funds take its place as well. A third one, a fourth area that I want to spend time on as far as the last mile, particularly beyond the school campus, and that's a big theme that we've had here, is $7.1 billion. Actually, it's close to $7.2 billion. 100 million there, 100 million here and there. Obviously, $100 to most of us is a lot. $7.2 billion. This one's different in the way that from the 3.2 billion that I mentioned before, where parents apply for it, the 7.1 billion is something that districts are involved with, much like the original Lmi project that I just talked to you about. That was $8 million. Its focus for the 7.1 billion is very, very similar. It's for internet access beyond the school campus, just not to the home. It can be used for a variety of things, of community centers to put something in those, just like we did with the original Lmi or the fire stations, or they can go to the home as well with the wireless hotspots. If there's a last mile wired, it can be used to help pay for those costs there. So it's very similar to the $8 million Lmi project that we talked about beginning like September of 2020. The exception is that this our Lmi project did not pay for the computers. This one can go toward that. We've been waiting for some guidance to come out about it. I would say well, first of all, Scott Kane and Caprice. We have Scott and Caprice on. This has there's something that came out. Scott leads our E-Rate initiative. Caprice is with them as well. Is there anything that something came out yesterday that we probably need to make people aware of? So what came out yesterday, Scott?
Yeah, David, thanks. In what was similar to a news brief from USAC, came out to announce training tomorrow, or the training that begins tomorrow, a series of webinars, and I'm going to put a link in the chat to registration to the website for those, and I just dropped it in there. A team at USAC is going to be providing webinars on how this $7.2 billion is going to be administered under the umbrella of the E-Rate program. It is separate from the E-Rate program, and so there is a separate set of rules that will apply to those funds. But it will be administered through the E-Rate program under the umbrella, and actually also administered through the EPIC system, the E-Rate Productivity Center. So it will look and feel very similar to the E-Rate process.
Thanks, Scott. To give you proportions is if you take 7.1 billion and divide it by 50. You get about 140 million available to Kentucky. It's a lot of money, 140 million. So let's talk. And it's I think this is CARES 3 money where it's available as long as it lasts. So here's some things as I read through it that of interest. And I won't go through all the things I went through with our staff yesterday. The thing that I have struggled with even national organizations, of them really trying to get a handle on how much unmet need do we really have as far as having enough internet to go to the home. And you'll hear me always say, broadband is not the same as internet. Broadband is a speed. It's a very high speed of internet. But as we found in Kentucky K-12, and we've been doing it for decades, you need far less than broadband speeds per student. We use 25% of 1 meg download speeds. The definition of broadband is 25 meg download, 3 meg upload. We need significantly less. Even during the pandemic, a year worth of pandemic of measuring, is at most it got 1 meg per student. So as I read the FCC order, a lot of people, you read this, probably 99% use the words broadband and internet synonymous, and they're not, particularly in the K-12 setting where we need significantly less than that. As I read through the 98-page document from the FCC and the comments they got from folks, and then some bottom line, the part that they're way off on, and this is nationally, is I'm always a big person, most people that know me, is something 99% broke for 99% or 1% broke for 1%. Because when people use the word sum, and a variety of folks, when they use the term sum, it is usually a tiny number, a very tiny percentage, a 1% type of thing versus 99% broke. So in the case of Kentucky, is we started measuring it in a name and claim type of way. We had around 13,000 of our 648,000 students that did not have enough internet beyond the school campus to do their schoolwork. Now, X number of that 13,000, the parents did not want a device. It was made available by the district, and the parent says, I only want in person. I don't want a virtual option. So they could have used, there's, I don't know if it's 1,000 of that, 13,000, 3,000 of them, but there's X%, and your You probably had a few in your district that an option was made available to them and the parent did not want it. But let's say it's 10,000, but we'll stay even with 13,000. If you take 13,000 times 50 states, the unmet need, and I would say Kentucky was on average, that's 650,000 students nationwide. There's trouble I have with the way the FCC has done this. I think they significantly overestimated the amount of students that don't have enough internet beyond the school campus, significantly. I think it's over 40 times off, not just one times, not two times, 40 times off. A lot of times in their numbers, they're talking about there's 40 or 50 million students nationwide that don't have enough internet access beyond the school campus. And here in Kentucky is, we got down to the 13,000. All the funding sources that were made available before and even the initiatives that were already there, I think they're way off. As I read it, a lot of that language was frozen in time back in the December and November timeframe, even as they're announcing this. And so the unmet need that we have now, you all know the amount of money that went toward buying devices. We got down to only 1.5% of our 648,000 students did not have a device that they could access schoolwork beyond the school campus. Obviously, we have to do something and try everything we have to, with the 1.5% and the 2%. Some of that is going to a location that's near them. If really they can't get a wireless signal of any time, they can't get a satellite image, they can't get wireless, they can't do data casting. That number is really tiny. I mean, the 13,000, that number's got to be really tiny. 1,000, maybe 2,000, maybe 1,000. That absolutely, there is nothing that reaches them that we have statewide. So the folks that came well intended, I think it's tremendously overfunded. I think 7.2 billion is a boatload of money, and it's way more than what is needed by times of 40 times. So that's an observation that I have. As I read through it, you can't really see there's two different ways of applications, and they'll talk about it. The first wave is really from July to next July of applying for unmet need. And it's similar, starting to use the words that we have done in Kentucky as far as what they want to know what your current status is, what it was before the pandemic, and what truly is your unmet need going forward. And just really focusing on those that don't have it. And as you read through the descriptions, they really want to focus right now for the remaining students, which I think is the right thing to do, that don't have it. And the $3.2 billion doesn't address it. There are $600 million doesn't address it. Here's another one going the extra mile, extra last mile, I should say, no pun intended. We're going to go whatever we can to do to try to reach them. This last remaining, I don't think it's 40 million students. I think it's more like 650 at most. It's 1 million nationwide. So this is a good funding source to try to help address a high percentage, 80, 90, 95, 99% of that remaining 650 to 100 million that are nationwide. As you take a look at the second wave of it, the way it goes is there's any money left over from that, then they can go back to past costs beginning in March 2020 to June 2020 or July 2020, somewhere around there. So there's got to be a boatload of money left over because the unmet need is just not that large. So you can go back. Well, once again, tons of CARES money addressed this. A very large portion of the new computers that were bought to deal with the one-to-one mobile were bought with CARES money. It didn't say it in the order. I got to believe, though, and Scott, when I spoke with him to follow up on this, is it seems an ineligible, not eligible expense to be used to get reimbursed for if it does make it to this phase 2 is money that you spent CARES money on and getting this money to reimburse that. I don't see that happening. He didn't say it in there, but I find that it hard to believe that will happen.
David?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify on that very issue. Deep buried in the order, there is, I think it's in a footnote actually, there is an order that is associated with this that says that applicants cannot seek these new funds where equipment or services have been or already were purchased with other targeted pandemic relief funding.
Okay. Good.
Including the CARES, also includes targeted state funding as well. So any reimbursements of funds that have already been spent can only be basically funds that came from the general fund of a district.
Yeah. And keep in mind, the intent and purpose is not to game the system. I'm not a fan of gaming the system. It's really to address the remaining unmet need. And what did you do when you didn't have any other funding? Let's say it addresses that last, 1.5%. And then really what situation you got no funding for? Zero. And it's only for mobile devices, which I am for. I always kind of struggle with why is anyone still buying a desktop at all? I know there's 1%, 1% reasons why you buy a desktop computer, but in the age of remaining mobile, and we recognized during the pandemic, a desktop computer was a boat anchor. Especially during the height of it, where we were 100% virtual, as those are boat anchors in the classroom and don't have the mobility. And so the targeting of this fund is the mobility. The last time I would point out to you that is different, as I've read it from the past, is when E-rate started back in the 1998s, and Kentucky has always been a top 5 state in percentage that we get back per student. State law and federal law did not require internet content management at the home. And I would always get clarification from the feds, and it did not require it. The thing that is different, and that we're well prepared for with what we're doing with Lightspeed, Phil Coleman's going to talk about that here a little bit, what we're doing with Lightspeed, is it never required it before, but what this one pointed out to me is different, is the internet, if you were getting E-rate rebates or discounts or taking advantage of any way, any $1 associated with this program, and there's a school-owned device that's going home, not personally owned, but school-owned device, then you're responsible for the internet content management as it goes to the home, or no matter where it's at. It really said the words beyond the school campus, which makes sense because we're going to have 3% that really are in situations where they're coming close. And we've done 2 different surveys that really say it's a tiny percentage, but they're going to some area close by, neighbor's house, community center that they're going. So wherever it's at, it needs to have that. Go ahead.
David, we're specifically talking about SIPA in
SIPA,
regards to, right on.
Yeah. And as Scott said, the E-rate program is confusing as enough as it is. But it was chosen to use the E-rate program to disperse this money and kind of have some real sets with it. So it has a 471 form, it has a 472 form. But it is separate from E-rate. It says all through the order, it is separate from E-rate. But this will be 10 levels of confusing to folks because there are some differences, some noticeable differences between E-rate program and this one, but they're just trying to follow up. And once again, this $7.1 billion is temporary funds. E-rate is an ongoing funding source. This is temporary funds. Scott and Caprice and team, is there anything else I need to mention? Those that are familiar with this, that we need to. Great opportunity for the remaining needs that we have with students out there with all the ones I mentioned. Anything we need to mention beyond that?
I think you covered it really pretty well, David. I kind of just in anticipation of this kind of drew up a couple of statements and kind of dovetails with what you've been saying and it's kind of what this is and what it isn't. And as you said, if you focus on this being a way to get last mile service to those who absolutely could not obtain it otherwise, that's what this is focused on. What it's not is, and it's important to note this, it's not to refresh any district network equipment.
On premise, no, not on premise.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Nothing on premise. It's not a way to upgrade staff, connections for your staff or your students that they've already got. It's not a way to replace a fleet of portable devices. You will be expected to at least maintain, although it won't be something you'll have to provide. The early indications are you will have to maintain a list of to whom you are providing the services by name. So there's going to be a 1-to-1 correlation with what you purchase and who is using it, and you'll have to maintain that. So obviously, it's not going to be a way to maintain or upgrade an entire fleet of portable devices, and it's not going to be something that you can use to build out your your school network. So just wanted to make sure that that we touched on those, but you really did a very good job on that. Thanks.
Yeah, and I also bluntly saying we've talked about this topic before. We're going to write the FCC. Districts should refrain from extending their school network to homes, meaning you're taking the internet service that's coming through the KD Internet Hub to your school buildings to service your staff, and then trying to get into the business of extending that out and going to homes. That's been a constant no-no from the E-rate program. Once again, this other thing's a separate program. E-rate does not allow that. In fact, you got to subtract costs out if you start getting into that business, and it's a bad business for districts to get involved with because the expectations of people at homes is high. You're getting involved with cybersecurity aspects of it. So once again, want to use this opportunity to refrain from doing that. There's a wide variety of options. Like I said, there may be 500 houses, 1,000 houses in Kentucky that can't get a satellite signal, can't get a wireless signal, can't get a fixed wireless, can't get a wired of anything. It is not worth the district going down that path. And by the way, there's all these other funding sources that I mentioned that are trying to put last mile wired in your communities to an existing middle mile network. 600 million, that's just the beginning. There was $2 billion that went to Kentucky state government, not KD agency, but Kentucky state government, and they peeled off a portion of that to try to do with last mile. I suspect more of that will be peeled off to go to last mile to telco companies to build out. The other part of good news too, staying on the good news theme with money, there's 10% of both the CARES 2.0 and 3.0 funds that are available out there. And even for our staff that I briefed this a little bit yesterday, I'm going to take a look at this chart I got yesterday of the items that we put in for, which ones are CARES 2 and CARES 3. When I re-looked at it this morning, it's most of you, the folks that I said, I had an eye exam yesterday and with both eyes, and so I couldn't see as well when I came back. So it appears some of the items we put into are CARES 2.0 with the funds, the 10% funds, and part of them are 3.0. And I'm going to take a look at which ones fall in different categories. So that was new news to me as just looking through and being able to actually see the spreadsheet in a little bit more detail. So at the KD agency level, just like you all have, you all get 90% of the funds that, all the funds that were for Kentucky, the school districts get 90%. KD agency has 10% of that amount. And the 10% is really for shared services for school districts. That's the main intent. Where you use 95% of the funds, 95% of that 10%. And there's a small percentage that you can use for the agency, but for the very large percentage, it's what kind of good shared services that can we do for school districts. And for those you kind of remember the ones we did last time with CARES 1.0, we, online registration, our campus learning, our digital learning coaches, our virtual academy. Kind of blended where we're trying to, put together the ones the districts already have and put them into a, kind of a combined kind of team as much as we could. And we also used part of it for upping the bandwidth speeds of districts as we did CARES 2.0. We took a look at the CARES 2.0 and there was X amount of money that was made available to districts. They said they didn't, there was a condition that it was $75 per student, but you have to do X, Y, and Z. X number applied, percentage, X number, so that left money to be reallocated and to be competed for, which part of those monies went to OET just for our staff, and you'll see that. Some of the new things that were on there that we got approval. So these are all been green lighted yesterday by the commissioner. So continuation of a lot of those services that I just mentioned, all of them actually. The initiative that Chuck Austin we've talked about, this user experience, bringing together tying together multiple data systems, the cybersecurity effort we're trying to get with single sign-on and user password reset. It was approved. It was one of our top priorities, along with beefing up the bandwidth. Also, data visualization through Infinite Campus was approved as well. variety of things we want to do with that, but also identify the students with social and emotional issues in an easier way for school districts to be able to address them. Many years ago, the agency paid for the Kentucky Virtual Library Services for school districts when we had our first massive budget cut, a long stream of 13 years, I mean, almost seemingly consistent cuts. But the big one we got in 2008 due to the mortgage crisis led us to not be able to buy the Kentucky Virtual Library Service for all districts any longer. Still have a healthy percentage that districts have continued to use their own money to buy, use that service, but we have, I don't know if it's 60 or 70 districts that have not. So to provide equity of that service and then focusing in on the really things that could help with any gaps that have occurred during the pandemic is the Kentucky Virtual Library has been paid for. And also Kentucky Educational Television, who provides a lot of services to homes, but also school districts. We anticipate them being a big part of the extended school learning environment and the gaps. And they also had funding approved to refresh some of their equipment, which, to be honest with you, some of it failed during the pandemic, which, by the way, was helpful in getting the money justified to replace some of their services. And I don't want to do it, but it's almost like you have to unplug all these services maybe for a day, couple of days, and people get to see that how how valuable they are, and what all the things that runs on top of them. But KT got theirs approved as well. See if there's anything else I need to mention in that area. Yeah, there's some even, I mentioned this is the first time out of the CARES 1, 2, or 3 that we asked for something for the agency to help us prepare for a blended learning environment and just a blended environment in the agency, where we're going to have a mixture of people on site and remote. We see that's a stickiness factor of meetings instead of people coming long distances for meetings. This is going to be the way this is going to be handled for quite some time. But we want to make sure we have the right setup there that people can, work in a blended environment. And we'll say this point one more time, is it's much easier to have either 100% remote, 100% in person, but the blended of it is very difficult, and make it just not the technology part of it, just the people aspect of it, and who runs the meeting and who's got to get there early, get everything set up, and while they can't do anything else on their laptop and has that responsibility. So part of what we're setting up is Teams rooms in different key parts of the agency that keep from that person having to do a lot of knowing this cable goes here, this one goes here, and it's a secure environment where there's a tendency when you have these common shared areas, things tend to walk off. So that was all great news. Anything for our staff about the funding part of it that I missed, but that's a great news. This good expenditure of these money, especially what we're talking about with the user experience project, that puts Kentucky, we were the national leader in cloud-based computing. This really puts us in a place that, we can move to the cloud for Active Directory and get districts a lot more cyber secure. And you're all aware of the significant increase of cyber attacks on the United States. You've read it beyond school systems. There is a concerted effort of cyber attack, to shut down main systems in the United States by foreign countries. So definitely, K-12 is not excluded from that. So we definitely always have to have security now high up on our radar screen, that this is now definitely a toolbox of some foreign countries that we have that are attacking the United States. Anything else I need to mention about the money part of it? That's all good news. All right. We talked last month about the importance of product standards, our CATS product standards. It is the edge, it's the advantage that we have on the other 49 states. It's one of the key reasons that we have not run into a lot of the major issues that the other 49 states ran into during the pandemic. It proved valuable before the pandemic, and it will after the pandemic. But having a statewide approach, a statewide structure of product standards is the key element, a key fundamental principle in the CATS program that was established in 1992. As far as interoperability of systems, ease of supporting of them, you're not creating unique islands in a district. And we spent some time and energy. I won't spend the same here. Marty, changing subjects. Can you give us an update on the Chief Digital Officer update? I know we just came from the digital learning. I was just listening to Digital Learning Summit, which was awesome.
Absolutely.
pace, place, and path. Anything else that you want to update us on?
Right on. So leading into I have 4 or 5, just kind of share outs. One, celebrate that right now, the Digital Learning Coach Summit is going on, and we have, for the first time ever, well over 500 digital learning coaches in the state of Kentucky, which is just a huge bump and growth point for us when we think about the people side of K-12 EdTech. We want to continue to prop that roll up in each district, and in some districts, each school, whether that's a full-time or part-time position. So that summit is going on right now. That's led obviously by the awesome Laura Raganos, and she just is extremely passionate. Unfortunately, it coincided with the same day as our event, but it's sponsored by KET, and it was a great day for them to be able to join in and share out. So if you have digital learning coaches that are not able to tune in this morning, that event will go all the way through 2 o'clock. And this afternoon, the team is launching some really great tooling in terms of learning and professional learning for our digital learning coaches. So that's exciting. And we're going to continue to support that role. And David, is exactly as you said. I'm so glad you jumped in this morning to share the ideas of blended. That's where we're going to be in terms of using technologies and maximizing technologies for learning, blending digital tools and resources with learning to personalize. That's place, pace, and path, and that's awesome. So also wanted to share out, just posted earlier this week, yesterday in fact, that our library media standards have now, which are ratified by a Kentucky administrative regulation, are now posted to our kystandards.org website. That is the home of all Kentucky academic standards. And so our library media standards are now official. And so we'll move in to the implementation year of the first implementation year of our new student targeted library media standards. So go check those out. They join our Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology as well, which went live a couple months ago, and also join our Kentucky Academic Standards for Computer Science, that we wrap our arms all the way around and understand that all students need to be exposed to these standards, especially when learning and engaged in library media, and then also learning and engaged in computer sciences. But then for our academic standards for technology, these are required for all students based on a graduation requirement. So there's a lot there that we're excited about, but we'll continue to work through over this next school year, the 21-22 school year. Also, just as an awareness point, but the next iteration of our digital readiness survey will go live July 1st. That's our target. Our target is to open that up July 1st, and that window will run July 1st all the way through September 15th. The emphasis this year, as you know, as EdTech leaders, you've shared year over year your how thankful you are that we've narrowed down our digital readiness survey to the questions that matter to you, the questions that are helpful. We've gone on a healthy data diet that we'll continue to do. So we're going to get rid of some additional questions that we no longer find value in, and asking. Maybe it's something has transitioned, maybe that technology has transitioned. But the main emphasis for this year, there won't be a ton of change in questions. We're going to drop a couple questions, but the main emphasis this year is to clean up the data points in that digital readiness survey that are like inventory questions, so that you're very clear which questions are inventory questions, and then which questions are what we refer to as programmatic questions. These are the questions that you can answer in a second. The people side questions, how many days our CIO is employed. That's a people side question that build that programmatic point. And so we're going to clean that up and be very explicit. Our goal is to try to eliminate any questions that you may have or that we've had over the last couple of years of, hey, what do you mean by this? And so we're heads down on that right now. Our team is field staff, so that we can get that launched and opened up by July 1st. A couple more points that I just want to share, David. Just an online and virtual schools update. We know that so over the last several monthly webcasts, we've shared and the attendance waiver that was completed and our Kentucky Board of Ed approved. We've continued to get some districts submit that waiver request, and so we're now up to around 116 districts who have submitted for a waiver request for attendance for full-time enrolled virtual students. These are students that you are, by request of families and students, are placing into a full-time enrolled virtual school program or academy. And so we continue to receive those, but I just want to prompt or push again to get engaged in that conversation as EdTech leaders if you're not yet. Even if your school district has said, we're not doing this right now, I would encourage you to stay connected to other districts around you and listen to what's being shared. We will continue to share. We're going to ramp this network up as quickly as we can and connect all of our full-time enrolled online and virtual school students. We have big plans there. I know I shared that last month, but be on the lookout for that. And if your school district is not there yet, or you have developed rationale why it's not the right fit for you, no sweat, but just stay tuned and listen in and be ready to participate in that if you can. Last thing, we have a ton of summer events going on, and these are events that are sponsored by co-ops, our colleges and universities that all wrap around maximizing the effective uses of technologies for learning's sake in most cases. And so the summit from Murray State was awesome, but we also have Teach Meet that's coming up. We have IFL that Fayette County sponsors. We have KY Go Digital events, an event that's going to launch in July as well. There are a ton of events this summer to be engaged in. Our team is staying in tune with all those as well. And helping out when and where asked. And so we're really excited about that. We've looked around at other states as well, and we have a lot of networked and connected learning in this space. And so we're going to continue to propel forward. And I just wanted to make a mention of how awesome it is that everyone from, as a partnership with our organizations, our co-ops, and our school district leaders, along with us, join together to push forward. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Marty. And Dee Dee, I'll circle back to you. I'm sorry I skipped over. I did want to mention, I should have mentioned some of my previous discussion about the product standards. The way we establish product standards, this is for all of our vendors out there as well. You'll see a little thing I have later down about Zoom Info. Nearly every product standard we have is established through an RFP process. So you either become a CATS product standard, or you stop becoming one if you were one, if you don't win and compete in our RFP process. Apple Corporation in September of 2020 intentionally chose not to be a CATS product standard any longer through our RFP process. They intentionally said they would not comply with 13 of the basic requirements to do anything, any contract we have with state government. Even though they've agreed to every one of those since 1992, it was an intentional choice by Apple Corporation. So therefore, Apple is no longer a CATS product standard. We do have a waiver process. The waiver process is mainly geared toward, it's a temporary waiver process. We're allowing MacBook Airs on a temporary basis. But just so you know, the intention is to phase out Apple. Because Apple has chosen no longer to be a CATS product standard. In all my years with CATS, 30 years, I have never had a vendor go out of their way to say, I don't want to be a CATS product standard, what Apple Corporation did. No longer be a CATS product standard. We weren't happy about it. We were far from pleased about it. But this is something Apple chose, and this has been, in fact, in place since September of 2020. All right, thank you, Dee Dee. Go ahead.
All right, just some quick updates today. Thank you, David. As you all should know, school report card for the 1920 did close out with the finance release last month. So that's done, but we are ramping up for the 2021, which will open to districts first for safety data in July to review, and then again in August to review other data outside of assessment accountability. I do want to mention one new piece of data that we'll have this year that we've not had in the past. The school climate survey data that was gathered as part of the K-Prep testing. Those questions will be on the school report card, the school and district level, by question, or by group, by question, and then disaggregated by race and student group in all that reporting. So that's a lot of detail, very granular level detail that will be on the school report card. It may not be on the card when it is released at the end of September, but it would be available within the 30 days after that is the time frame we're looking at now. But that's relatively new, so just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that data will be on the school report card and will be in a very granular way reported. So another item that's new is in the Infinite Campus. We will be adding a supplemental school year program indicator. This will be available by the end of July. The program indicator will allow district staff to go in and indicate if a student is participating in a supplemental year program. There'll be 2 indicators, an SSYP for the regular supplemental school year, but if you have a graduate, there will be an SSYPG that will indicate that there's a graduate that's made the decision to come back and for a supplemental year. So that information will be able to be updated student by student, and it will also be able to be updated in batch. So districts will have options depending on the numbers of students participating in supplemental year. And I think we have a question about this. If somebody can maybe go to Soapbox and show the question, just as a reminder, those questions are up there.
And Andy, you should question 1 too, because Marty had that too. So if you can just go question 1 and question 2, we'll go back to Marty just real quick, and then we'll show question 2 with Dee Dee. Or is it whose choice?
I'll go, David. I'm gonna go
okay.
ahead.
So I always think it's Andy and me. This is you, Marty. Go ahead.
You want to start with question 1, or you want to start?
Yeah, just go one. Just go one, and then we'll.
There you go. So 24 responses. You know,
we haven't talked about that one yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2.
There you go.
So we have about 2/3 of the school districts are going to participate in the supplemental year program. If you're not one of those, if you're part of the 33%, and the number, you don't have to worry about this, but there'll be more information on how to update the fields and where the fields can be located in Infinite Campus coming out in July. Also a reminder, the Infinite Campus bills were sent out last month. So hopefully your finance officers have those. Payments are not due until August 15th, but we always ask that Infinite Campus bill us early, so it gives you as much flexibility as possible to either pay with old year or new year money. So take a look for those. If you do not find the bills, you can send an email to KDE data request at education.ky.gov, and we can provide you a copy. And then back to what we were talking about with question number 1, and I understand why nobody could really answer that question yet, this is something relatively new that we've just started working with the Council on Post-Secondary Education on. The Council on Post-Secondary Education had said that they would like KDE to send out information out to all students and parents saying that students with certain level of GPAs were automatically direct admitted into all the colleges and universities and public colleges and universities in Kentucky. They're looking at 2 different groupings. Exactly what those GPA ranges are going to be aren't known yet. We think the high range will be 2.75 and above. And what would be is KDE would send out something. We can't do that. That information that you collect on students and parents is their addresses, their email addresses, phone numbers. We very specifically do not use that data, can't use that data under FERPA. That is district data. So what we're doing is working with the Infinite Campus system to find a way that we can actually utilize the system to allow districts to send out those notices. Any high school that would participate in this, they would actually be able to run an ad hoc within Infinite Campus to be able to pull the students that would qualify, upload it into the messenger services, and the messenger could send out a notification through Parent Portal or through email. And I think there's 44 districts in the state that have the premium messenger product, product. So that means that they could send it out by text or through voice messages. So CPE is working with us to identify specifically the GPA ranges, the messaging around this. And the other thing that we want to promote is FAFSA completion. So we're looking at ways that we can actually include that in there so that students are completing the FAFSA. What CPE says is there's about $40 million a year left on the table that Kentucky students have eligible to them, but don't take advantage of. So anything we can do to help promote that, but that will be something that we're looking at doing from a district level. However, we'll utilize the tools within campus to make it as easy as possible for districts to participate. David, can you think of anything else you want to add about that?
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
So that was what that question's around. So you might want to ask that, you know, if you have already answered it and now you know more about the CPE Direct Admissions Project, you might want to go back and answer that question again. So we do have some training opportunities coming up. We do have beginning of year training that'll be online as usual, July 21st. That's for Infinite Campus. That will be available in the media portal. We also have the Infinite Campus is hosting some additional training August 2nd through 6th. And that participation is free. November 4th and 5th, we'll have campus interchange in Louisville. It will be in-person training. And then followed by November 15th and 19th, some national training that campus is offering, which is a cost associated with that one too. So keep those in mind. Do you want to pull up the direct submissions question again after people have kind of got a little bit more information, or do you want to move on?
Yeah. I'll just bring it up again.
Number 1, Marty.
We're working on it right now.
Yeah.
There you go. 28 responses now.
Okay. So we still have people, some of those 3 that say yes, you feel like you're definitely be interested, reach out to me. CPE is looking for some districts to kind of start with. And I know I've got a couple that I sent some information out to the Infinite Campus User Board and that have responded back, but I would love to have some others that would be interested in partnering and helping provide some initial direction on how to make that process work as smoothly as possible for everybody.
And Dee Dee, there's not a easy way for folks to switch their answer. So I would bet that of the 26 who said they need more details, we would get some yeses there as well.
Right.
Awesome.
And just so you know, this is a good thing. Dee Dee, I appreciate your leadership in this area with the transcripts, but we're just trying to make sure that, students that normally would not go to college aware that, they've been pre-approved. And also, there's $40 million available to this state to help fund them. Help them get a good run and go in life. So Dee, I appreciate the effort of what we're trying to do, our good work with CPE. We're going to make sure you can pass this on to the appropriate person in your district. I've shared it with our commissioner. It's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. The good thing we've done with our transcripts of making it easier for high school students to have their transcripts information sent to higher ed and responded to very quickly is also a fantastic thing that we've done that's improved since I was in high school. So I appreciate the effort in there, and you'll hear more about this.
Great, thank you.
All right, Phil and Marty, or Phil and Chuck, give us status of real quickly of some initiatives.
Sure. So we are in our second full week of the Lightspeed rollout. We're doing about 20 a week, and we hope to be finished with that the first couple of weeks in August, but won't be before school starts, but it'd be right after school starts. So that's just one initiative that involves the school districts. We also have a bunch of bandwidth upgrades that we're getting ready to kick off, and that will be starting in early fall. We also have a hardware refresh from AT&T. They are actually replacing some of the Cisco routers in I think over 100 school districts. Now with that one, we're having a little bit of difficulty getting the technology components, and this is kind of evidence of the worldwide supply chain disruptions that have happened just recently. So we're working hard, and I think most of our work on that is really just trying to overcome that supply chain shortage. And then Active Directory, Chuck, I'll let you kind of kick that off a little bit, but I understand we're going to be rolling some pilots at the end of this month, right?
Yep, Phil, thank you for that. So just real quick, just some details I need to cover for everybody. As we talked about at our annual summit, really part one of that ultimate 3 to 5 year goal of getting to that connected user experience where we establish that single secure identity for all of our staff was the necessity to upgrade Active Directory as it currently stands in place today. So, I'm happy to report that we are literally getting ready to kick that initiative into high gear, Philip. And I want to let all the districts know, and all this is going to be communicated via the field staff here over the next couple of weeks, that beginning the week of June 21st, we're going to start phase 1 of the Active Directory upgrade, which is where we're going to have Volta come to your district with 2 brand new servers, and they're going to rack and stack or install those servers during normal business hours in a non-disrupting fashion. All right. And they're going to do that based on a regional schedule that our field staff has. So they're going to be sharing that with you if they haven't already here in the next few weeks. The week of June 28th, we're going to have our pilot phase, and we've got 3 districts we've identified that are going to be part of the pilot, which actually migrate the directory services. Okay. Around mid-July this summer, and I'm giving you some tentative dates because, as you guys understand, there's still some testing and documentation that needs to be finalized. But around mid-July, we're looking to kick up what we're calling the velocity migration of the directory services over to the new hardware for the rest of the state. That's going to be a fairly benign upgrade for everybody because it's going to be done after hours. It's going to be over the course of 2 days where we're demoting and promoting new boxes to domain controllers and old boxes out. IP addresses aren't changing. Server names aren't changing. Forest architecture is not changing. Permissions aren't changing. So it's basically a hardware and software upgrade that we're going to be doing that's non-service impacting. Phase 3 will be when we upgrade the virtual domain controllers you have in Azure. We call that the D3. We're going to upgrade that to 2019 after we have finished with your respective district upgrade. Phase 4 will be the migration of security services, which is EPO, WSUS, and some other components from the old hardware to the new. And phase 5 will be the decommission of that old hardware, the removal of that hardware from the rack. And as Phil and I are working through, quite possibly some cleanup of the Ken racks just to make sure that we can keep everything functioning and in pristine order. So, just a couple other real quick notes. Obviously, the Active Directory upgrade is intersecting, okay, as Phil mentioned earlier, with the Lightspeed Relay project, which is a positive. We're just trying to leverage our boots on the ground resources, being able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Additionally, as David reported earlier, and I'm really happy and pleased that, for the first time since we implemented Active Directory back in 2003, part of what we're going to be doing at the state level is we're going to be covering the cost of client access licenses for both staff and students. Okay. And we're going to be leveraging our federal funds to do that, as well as starting to kick off a longer term initiative to really improve our baseline security around every user across the enterprise. And you're going to hear Phil and Bob and myself talk about this more. But ultimately, we need to get everybody in the enterprise to a point where the current identity has got some basic security features wrapped around it. Things like self-service password reset, multi-factor authentication, conditional access, user-based password expiration notifications. So we're going to be covering what we call the baseline licensing package at the state level, as well as bringing to your front door an implementation team to help us get all these things implemented across the state in the next 2 to 3 years, beyond just the directory upgrade this year. So, David, we got a lot going on. We got a lot getting ready to pop. We'll be communicating all of this through the field staff, possibly with some very specific webcasts or virtual meetings just for these topics. So just stay tuned.
Thanks, Chuck. I really want to, while we talk about security and all the cyber crime that's going on, the bad guys, the bad actors have actually upped their game and started to do DDoS types of attacks in a much different way. So I really want to give a shout out to to your CATS security team, which have really worked all, in the last few months. I guess ever since in January, they've been working really hard to make improvements to our DDoS system. This is not something that we, talk in detail about, but I just really wanted to know that we wanted you all to know that these guys have really done some good work and made some huge improvements in that. So just want to give them a shout out.
Phil, this is Bob. I also want to I'd love to shake their hands next time I see them live and in person. We've actually had hundreds of more DDoS attacks across the state this year than we did last year. And every one of those attacks means that folks on our security team work with AT&T, our network provider, to try to help mitigate those attacks. And so that's in addition to everything else that they're doing to help us. And so they really have stepped up their game and helped our network provider out to help defend Kentucky's districts, because we've still managed to keep the negative impact of these DDoS attacks down as low as we possibly can. We still want to get it lower, but it's pretty amazing when you look at how much impact it could have from a negative standpoint.
Sure.
And then because of our partners and our staff, where it's at right now.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, sure is. Thanks, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
David?
Thank you. Yep. Good stuff happening there, and the funding to actually help make it all happen. So that's a good scenario. Bob, you're going to give some reminder about cybersecurity. I know we have 3 questions that you want to feedback on too. So let me go through that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm back on the screen. I also want to briefly say that regarding the security baseline that Chuck mentioned just a bit ago, that really is going to focus not just on identity, but also on the data and email and the device. And you heard him mention things like conditional access and some other kind of buzzwords and things like that, MFA. And all of those are what I would consider to be probably a baseline. And we want folks to be able to take advantage of those across the state so that we can say this is where we're at the very least. And so again, the key thing that he also said was help to implement. And we know that without that, then a lot of this stuff might not be as meaningful or as enticing. So what I really wanted to speak with you about right now is the fact that August is going to be here before you know it, and we probably have a lot of new CIOs out there right now in DTCs, and annually we're all required, me too, KDE as well, to provide to our own respective boards of education a security report, an analysis, a health check, if you will, about how well we're doing or how well we're not doing. And so one of the things that can include is, have you had any data breaches? Have you, how well are your top secret data being protected? Do you know where they are? I think about a week ago, I sent out an email to our CATS engineers and asked them to forward out to the CIOs. And this is the same email I sent out last year, but I think it still works this year, that gives everybody an idea of what you can include in your report. There's no, unfortunately, there's no baseline for this report. There's no guide or anything like that, but I've simply put together a few ideas that you can include in order to make sure that your board gets it before the end of August cutoff or deadline. If you have questions about this, if you are a new CIO or DTC and you're just not sure where to start, and that email gave you some ideas, but you'd like to know a little bit more about it, feel free to reach out to me and we can kind of talk through that, and I can give you some more ideas on format and stuff. There's no length requirement or minimum. It's just really good to go ahead and make sure that your Board of Education, your superintendent, your district leadership know where you're at, because if you do suffer a data breach or a security incident, you can always look back at your report and say, well, I kind of told you that we were kind of weak here. Or you can say, well, this is another thing that we need to add to the report and make sure that we work on this for next year. We might need additional funding to fix an issue or to make sure we don't have an issue, or we might need to train people a little differently. And so this security report can help you move your district along from A to B to C to D in your security stance. Hopefully that makes sense. And we do have a couple of questions that I wanted to briefly discuss in Go Soapbox.
Bob, we're pulling those up right now.
Awesome, thank you.
Let's start with question number 3. Have you begun the district cybersecurity health check report? And
Yeah.
Bob, I think you're going to be pleased with the results so far.
I'm super pleased. That's awesome. And just to let you guys know, I've actually started on KDEs. I started ours a month or so ago, and we're still putting together some data. And I've spoken with David about it, you know, and that sort of thing. So we're along the path as well. We're going to do our best to get ours to our board before August. And so I'm still shooting the end of June as a target to hand this over to David. And you don't have to wait until August, and I recommend that you not necessarily wait until August. If you've got a little bit of downtime right now, hopefully you can jump into that. So that looks really good. I love to see anything over 50% in the positive. So I'm really excited about that.
And Bob, this is question number 4.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Let's see. That's interesting. So with cyber insurance, has your district begun paying for that? Yes. You know, it's a double-edged sword, cyber insurance, and I'm kind of interested if we're going to start seeing that swing back around. There are some issues with cyber insurance. A lot of studies show that the fact that we have so much cyber insurance, so many people paying for that in the US right now, that it's actually encouraging cyber criminals to ask for bigger ransoms. And so the federal government is also recommending that folks not pay ransoms. And so that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't have cyber insurance. They're just saying, don't be so quick to pay for ransoms. Also, a big gotcha in there is that a lot of the ransoms go to countries that are kind of banned from receiving aid or money from the United States, and that could put you in some legal jeopardy right there. So I would be kind of interested to see if the trend towards cyber insurance actually starts to slow down a little bit and maybe reverse. And then the last item, oh my gosh, this is a really pretty graph right here.
Let me actually, Bob, let me make this a little bit more clear, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. And this is a very interesting topic, and this is, has your district removed local admin permissions from some or all of your users? And I'm really curious about this because I know that this can result in a lot of bad feelings amongst staff if they feel as though they've lost the ability to either personalize their devices or install applications that they need, or install devices like printers or you know, fingerprint readers, that sort of thing. And so I'm really curious as to how we're going on that. And I also would love to hear from folks who went through this maybe earlier, and then how did that work out over the pandemic when everyone sort of went to work from home and remote work? Were there any big gotchas? Was there a significant amount of broken glass that occurred because of folks taking these devices that they were no longer local admins of and taking them home and then attempting to work from a local network at home, a personal network? So I'm very interested to hear from folks on that. You know, I think that there's a way to do this that minimizes pain and suffering and agony, and definitely would love to speak with folks who have gone through this process and either did it well or did it not so well, and maybe get some lessons learned so that we can help kind of provide some answers across the state for folks who might want to do this, or maybe are thinking of it and might want to hold off until they're in a better position to do this. This really does help protect against things like ransomware, malware, but I think the biggest bang for the buck may be to protect the account in the cloud with some form of multi-factor authentication or dual-factor authentication. However, this is a key security tool, and I'm heartened to see lots of folks apparently investigating it, students and staff. And I know that we have some folks who probably, have a lot of Chromebooks in their environment, and this might not be as important of a tool for those folks who are specifically, more in the Chromebook realm. For Windows devices especially, this is a key tool. And appreciate all of those responses, and again would love to hear some more conversation in the social Q&A or afterwards via email on any of these items. And I have one more shout out to the new CIOs and DTCs out there. If you need some help with your security report, drop me a line, send me an email, and I'll be happy to do what I can. Thanks a lot. David, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. Amy Young, are you on? Is Amy Young on today?
Yep. Good morning, David.
Hey, good morning, Amy. So this is another one of our outstanding folks that we have with Amy. A lot of you're familiar with interacting with Mike Lettingham, but Amy is one of the hardest working people I've ever met, and definitely a key component about it, and a lot of things we do behind the scenes at KD. So appreciate your good work, Amy. What do you want to make sure they're aware of with the vendor conference?
I appreciate it, David. Just wanted to provide everyone with the date that we have set for the annual CETS vendor meeting that's to occur on Wednesday, July 14th from 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, this go around, it will be an online meeting only. Vendor partners and CETS vendor partners were to receive the invite last week. So while your attendance is definitely requested, it is really core and essential for you to gain insight and an understanding on how best vendors and partners can support the overall goals of KD and CETS. So just briefly, some topics that we will generally cover are some budget and legislative activity, specifically how to do business with the Commonwealth, as well as with public school districts, the relationship that we have with CETS vendor partners and our CETS partner vendor community. We will also touch base on some strategic planning and upcoming CETS initiatives, as well as some upcoming and annual events. We're working on finalizing that agenda at this point, and that will be sent out about 2 weeks, within 2 weeks of the actual meeting date on July the 14th. And we will have the opportunity to, allow the partners to provide questions or topics that you want to make sure that are covered during that session. So please do provide those questions or those topics you would like covered in advance to Melissa Moore at education.ky.gov. And then we'll also have the opportunity for vendors to ask questions and provide live feedback through Go Soapbox, similar to what we have established today. So, and I think that is it. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Amy. Our vendor partners obviously can join us during these, which they do, but they really don't have the ability, and that's intentional to interact. That cookie looks good, Jason, by the way. They don't have the ability to directly interact with us. And so this is our way to a two-way conversation. I do want to, recognize these folks. These are the folks that have gone through the right purchasing process. When we set the law back in 1995, part of CARA, extension of CARA, about CETS product standards, regardless of the purchasing mechanism, federal, state, or local, district must purchase CETS product standards. And I've talked about the importance. These are the folks that have gone through the right process and are our CETS product vendors. And so we consider them teammates, and they're, from a sports analogy, they're in our huddle as we're calling the plays, and we want them very well aware of. That's why they're permitted, and we encourage them to join these monthly meetings. And that's why we just have a special get together with them. One of my good deeds for today is sharing with you something about Zoom info, which I think is an important thing that you may want to aware of. In 30 years with the Department of Education and 9 years with the Department of Defense, not one time has a cold call, a code email, junk mail, spam mail, or paper mail resulted in anything I've been involved with a purchase. So I've always been perplexed. Why are companies, even when we meet their vendor partners, one of the first questions I ask is, why are you all doing this? it's got to be incredibly ineffective. When I talk with my peers of other states, they're like, this is annoying. It's not effective. The most effective way to sell to government at any level is win an RFP. There's no circumvention of that. There's no, well, I know such and such, we can override it. No, that is the best way. However, I do find a good number of companies are trying to circle around and go around what is supposed to be done. And they don't put their best effort into an RFP. In fact, they put some of their weaker staff on that, an RFP effort. They just figure, well, just ignore and go around laws that are in place. That doesn't work out well for them at all in the state of Kentucky, by the way. So I started asking a few of them, where are you getting my contact information? The commonality I found is Zoom Info. The nice part about Zoom Info, and I suspect nearly all of you are on Zoom Info, is it's a pretty easy process, and they actually do it, is to ask for your name to be removed. And I'll remove, and I've seen a substantial drop in amount of junk emails I give and the junk voice calls I get, because they just go and scrape government websites, grabbing phone numbers, and they package them up, they be in Zoom Info, and they sell them, is what they do. Which is nice that they're, you have a way to remove yourself, because I confirmed that with a vendor that no longer saw me. And I didn't no longer show it up on the spreadsheet that this Zoom Info is selling. I've also attached something Bob Hackworth put in that shows other ways that you can remove your name from being out there and being hounded by calls and paper mails and emails unsolicited from vendors that are just trying to, and for the most part, I find they don't understand the purchasing process. They're used to dealing with companies and just say, well, if I go get buddy with someone, I can just sell. In governments, because we are stewards of taxpayer money, we do competitive bids, and vendors have to win competitive bids. There's no shortcuts. There's no go-arounds. And you heard me talk about being very upset with the go-around that I've found out about. So there's no shortcuts to do this, but this is a good deed of making you aware of something that may save you some time. The next time we meet in July, you'll hear us talk about all the different funding sources. This is something by law that came from CARA, the Kentucky Education Reform Act, that requires our office to present all the different funding out there to address technology needs. The good news is we're going to have the most, in my time in 30 years, the most money available to address technology will be this coming year and perhaps the next year because of the CARES funding addition. So that's great news as far as it, but obviously we're trying to make sure that things don't fall off a cliff in 2024 when the funding runs out, and have appropriate budget requests in place to take care of the sustained funding when that ends, and that's going to require your help as well. But you hear us talk about that in the July timeframe. Also, last week we met with the Office of Education Accountability, we being myself and Marty Park. They're doing a study on non-traditional instruction, particularly internet and device access beyond the school campus during NTI. That was a huge part, probably 80% of our discussion, but just also kind of how did it go with digital and remote instruction. We based all the information we gave them on the information you gave us, and the digital readiness that we get from Bright Bites, and also, by the way, the data that you were turning in every month on the amount of students that still had or still didn't have internet access beyond the school campus and a device access beyond the school campus up through March of 2021. All those come into play and it'll be very helpful in the report. The good news is typically OEA sends out a separate survey for you all to fill out again. Since we already have it, and because of time and a lot of other things, is they're just going to use our data for the report. And I thought that went very well. Our online testing, we talked about it last month. In Kentucky's history, it's the largest amount of online testing we've ever done. And I think we're the most successful states that ever done online testing. Definitely compared to the states around us, definitely a huge success. And Paul Shoemaker, I know you give me daily, stats of it, like 1.2, seems like it's 1.2 million successful online tests. Tell me if I'm wrong in that, but it's about that number. So very successful. We spent time on that last month. I see a couple of the last questions you had. Can we get more info about how parents apply for the $3.2 billion in money? And there's been a couple of documents that have been put out there. So Janice, just remind me, I got one before that will probably remove some stuff and we'll send to the field staff. What I looked at, every vendor that I could see, every telco in Kentucky is part of the program. I didn't see one that wasn't. I mean, you may find one in your area, but I looked at them because it kind of goes by your zip code and then sees your providers and who is participating in the program. But once again, it's $50 a month, and we can definitely send that link to you. Just Janice, remind me, and I'll find one. We'll give it to our field staff, and they'll send it out to districts. That came up in the Go Soapbox question.
And David, I can post that link as well in the chat.
Please. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Please do. Yeah, it's even better. And as I remember, I mean, there's been a couple of different companies that put that out. It shows the actual place where you go, where the low-income parents, can show. And I think it's done in a non-intrusive way that they're eligible. And just about because, and Dee Dee brings this up often, is very high percentage of Kentuckians are eligible for a variety of reasons. I want to say it's 80%. Does that sound right, Dee Dee? When you include just not individual, but the school-based, they become eligible. It's some kind of really high number. CEP, I think, is that correct? I think that's what the term is. So
that is
very,
correct.
yeah. So very high percentage of Kentuckians, and so any effort you can do to make low-income parents aware of that, we want to help you do that. Chuck, the question I saw: will AD updates affect connections to Google?
Yes, David, I've already answered that in the chat, as a matter of fact, and obviously all of the testing that we're going to be doing is to validate and verify that nothing is impacted negatively. So the answer to the question should be no, but obviously we're going to test that to ensure as we go through pilots and everything that all comes out on the other side as it's working today.
Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today. Normally I hang on for another half hour, but actually I have my nephew that came. Tyler Couch has joined me, and we are going to travel to Breathitt County to cut grass for 5 or 6 hours. So that's what I'll be doing to our farm that we have in Breathitt County. So that's where we're heading off to, and I'm appreciative of his help. But thanks for everyone for joining us. I hope you're having a good summer break so far. I'm taking some time off. I hope our staff on here does as well, and I hope you do too. Thanks for all you did for the past school year, and thanks for helping us getting ready for the next school year. See you soon. Take care.